All right, we're being recorded. I'll wait one more minute. By my watch, it's 1 minute too, and we'll start. How many people do we have on now?
We have 4 people. We have Amy, Chanel, Evelyn, and Lori. Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in just under a minute, less than a
Right
minute.
now. Yeah. Welcome, everybody. All right. So I do want to welcome you and thank you for coming. For the next 60 minutes, we're going to be talking about this program and hopefully answering all of your questions. And you'll be hearing from Jeff McInnes, who's with us as our honored guest today. He'll be doing a short presentation for you later on after I talk about the program. And welcome to Joanne DiCella, who is our very important face of the program. She's the one you see when you first inquire about the program and talk to and so on. And Virginia Desi, who is here as our tech person today, but she's also the program coordinator. So we're very happy to have all of you here. And do we have Carol yet? Carol Registe? No?
No, she's not on yet.
No. Okay, hopefully she'll join us. We invited her as our representative graduate student. So she'll be able to answer your questions from the point of view of having been a student not very long ago. So we'll start with what we're doing now, a bit of a check-in. I'll give you a very brief overview of the program, and then Jeff McInnes will be giving you a presentation which relates to our content. We'll have a good period for discussion and further questions, and then hopefully you can give us some feedback on how the webinar was for you. So that's my proposal for the next 60 minutes. We want you to ask any questions you have at any time, please. You can do them in person now, and while I'm presenting on the program, you can do it in chat. And my colleagues will let me know when there's a question I need to answer. And at the end of the presentation, during the discussion period, we can do it in person again. So right now, do any of you have pressing questions you want to ask? Nothing. Okay, so during the presentation, please feel free to ask your questions in chat. They will all be answered by the end of the hour. So I've already mentioned a few of the people on this list. These are the important people who in our program. Joanne is our senior educational advisor. Is that the correct title for you, Joanne?
Yes.
Okay. Virginia is our senior program coordinator. Carlos Sicoli is our associate, is actually the director, not the associate director anymore, of SEEK, and he apologized for not being able to be here today. Normally he would come in and say a few words, but he was called away for an emergency. I'm the program director and head of the Center of Excellence. Michelle Chambers is one of our senior faculty. Doug Miron is another. Glennie Mercer is a faculty member. Unfortunately, none of them could attend today, but they will definitely be available for you during the program. And we're expecting Carol Registe, who is a distinguished graduate of the MCOD. And as I mentioned, Jeff McInnes from Win Thinking Productions is our honored guest, and we're looking forward to hearing from him and all of you. So let's talk about this program. The SEEK Master Certificate in OD and Change is intended to help both new and developing practitioners understand OD as a comprehensive approach to facilitating change within complex human systems. I always have to read that because I can never get that out in one piece if I don't. But that's the short form of what OD is about. It's a lot of things to a lot of people, and many people use different definitions for it. But if you hear organizational assessment, organizational effectiveness, organizational change, all of those are OD. So we're online. This is not new. Actually, in 2020, we did it online, and now we're doing it for the second run. Actually, it's the third run, I think, online, because we did it twice in 2020. And so we're getting very good at this. You're going to be introduced to theories and models and practices of OD. And we address change at all levels. So it's a very wide, broad program, which should touch on just about everything you're interested in. We look at diverse communities, cross-cultural issues. Very importantly, we do a deep investigation of yourself, and we call it yourself as the instrument of change, because we believe that the more an OD practitioner is self-reflective, able to look at their own behavior, their own values, and what they do with their values, makes them as effective as possible. And all through the program, we use live case examples. And most importantly, this is a cohort approach. So we focus on a theory practice integration, and we have a group of people who are learning this with you. You will be with them throughout the whole program and be able to talk to them after the program. So you'll end up with a community of practice that you'll be able to draw on, hopefully, for the rest of your career. We have some people who started with us now probably 12 years ago who are still meeting regularly. So you can look forward to that. It's for you if you are an internal or external change agent. We address both. They're a little bit different. If you're internal and you have a job with the HR department or somewhere else in the organization, it's a little different from being a self-employed external change agent. And we discuss those differences and help you look at what you need to do in each case. If you're a manager responsible for change, you will definitely benefit from a program like this, which helps teach you how to manage change within your own unit. If you're a trainer, and many of our trainers from our training and development program fall into this category, they want to expand their knowledge and skills so that they understand the context of the organization they're working in, and they're not just training in a vacuum. Very important for somebody who defines their job as training and development. And any kind of HR professional wanting to incorporate change processes into your repertoire. Is there anybody here who doesn't fit into one of those categories? No? Okay, we've covered it. Here are the components of the program, and I will go through each of them briefly. The 2-day OD and Change Essentials is currently taught by me, and I will tell you what it covers in a minute. There's a 5-day OD Change and Intensive with a 3-day and a 2-day module. There's a 3-day business acumen for OD professionals and a 6-day practicum in OD and Change. The 6-day practicum is a bit misleading because you're not expected to do more than 6 days of work, but it's over a period of 3 months. So it's quite spread out. And I'll explain that to you too in a few minutes. Okay. So OD and Change Essentials is the program I teach. It's an introduction to OD and Change. It actually is very useful even to people who've been in the field for 35 years, they tell me, because it talks about the roots of OD and change, and most people don't know where that field comes from. So we do a fun piece on that, the history of OD. Then we get into you as the instrument of change. We look at your roles, your values, your style, You do some personal self-assessment to help you look at your learning goals, where you need to go from here and so on. And then the second day of the program, the whole day, is what I call research and practice. It's an action research approach using an actual consulting case study that I and a partner were involved in. And through the whole thing, you do personal assessment and goal setting as well. So the focus is always on you and developing you as the practitioner. But by the end of that 2-day program, you should be able to do an elevator speech on what OD is, which most people find hard to do right now. Okay. Please feel free to ask questions if you have any. I'm just going to keep going if you don't. The second module is broken into, the 5-day program is broken into 2 modules. The first module looks at kind of a broad, it goes deeper down into some of the work that we do in the essentials module. It looks at creating positive workplace cultures. It helps you understand action research more. It gets into the nitty-gritty of detail of contracting with the client and designing interventions and doing evaluation. So it's focused on the consulting role more specifically. Module 2 is focused more on the larger systems and what you need to know about understanding systems change and how you use interventions in a systems context. So it gets into leadership strategy, aligning leadership, people systems, organizational structures. And the really fun part of that module is you do a simulation of an actual OD intervention. So you get a feel for what it is to be doing OD in a simulated way. In the practicum, you do it in a real way. And in module 2 of the second module of the intensive, you do it, excuse me, in a simulated way. Business acumen for OD professionals evolved from our realization that most OD professionals do not know how to speak to people in the C-suite. They don't really understand business. They understand change, they understand OD, but they need to learn more about how to talk business language. So that's what this module is about. Learning how to talk the language of business. You do a business case from the Harvard Business Review, and you do your own case as well, creating a business case for how to use OD in the organization. So it makes you a bit of a salesperson because most people in organizations don't really understand OD very well. So you learn how to influence and communicate successfully with senior business leaders. Questions at this point? Okay. Finally, the practicum, and people tell us this is the capstone of their experience. The practicum is a chance for you to apply everything you've learned in the program in an actual organizational setting of your own choice, mentored by our faculty members. So you get lots of support, but you choose an organizational setting. It could be your workplace. It shouldn't be your actual job, but it could be in your workplace. And it is supported by learning partners within your class and your faculty members. Each of you gets assigned a faculty member to be a coach, and they talk to you on the phone on a regular basis. So lots of support. People love this. And then you write, at the end, you write a short paper, 8 to 10 pages, to talk about what you've learned and link that with what you learned in the program. And if you pass that, and it's a pass-fail, you get your certificate in organization development and change. So questions at this point about any of that? What's this? Uh-oh. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I had Jeff McInnes in there, not Doug Miron, but I had several versions of the slideshow, and this wasn't the version I was planning to show you. Anyway, let me ask you, are there any questions in chat at this point? Laurie says hello, that's it. Carol, are you here? Carol Regis, is she here? No? All right, so we
I don't think so, Marilyn.
we can't have our comment from the graduate student right now. So why don't we just move right on to Jeff? I think I'll let Jeff introduce himself to you. He'll probably do a better job of it than I would. Okay, Jeff?
Marilyn, sorry, Jeff, before we just have something Evelyn would like to know. The website currently has the 2021 dates and times. Can I confirm that most of the days are actually 3-hour sessions and not full days?
No, that's not entirely accurate. If you look closely, well, the module, I believe that the business acumen module has 1 or 2 full days. I would have to check my schedule to confirm that. Or Joanne could check the schedule. You sent it to me this morning. I think Michelle does a couple of full days online, but all of the rest of them are 3-hour sessions from 9 to 12.
Yes, that's correct. Michelle Chambers, the business acumen for OD professionals, runs from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. But the other sessions are typically from 9 a.m. to noon. Yes, or yeah, 9 to 12 most days.
Thank you. That's great. Are all of the acumen days 9 to 4:30 or just a couple?
Just a couple. Part 2, 9 to 4:30, and part 1, 9 a.m. to 12.
Right.
To 12 noon. Yes.
Right. Okay.
And sorry, and Evelyn, with regards to the dates, I'll send everyone the 2022 schedule. I'll send everyone the new dates.
That would be helpful. It could be posted now, couldn't it?
Yes, we will also get those dates posted. Yes. And Chanel asks, upon successful completion of the certificate, is it a designation, MCOD?
It's not a deshigration. A designation is a professional designation, which is offered through, actually, it's not offered. It's not offered through the Toronto OD network. I was going to say it is, but it's not. We've been working with them to try to get them to do that. But an association can offer a professional designation. This is a certificate program. It's an educational program, not a professional designation. Does that answer the question? Yes. Okay. Thank you. I've got the chat now. All right. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, let's move on to Jeff.
Perfect. Marilyn, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I have to be full disclosure. I love Schulich. I love what this business school is all about. We've been involved with Schulich for probably the last 10 or 12 years doing programs, not just in Canada, but over in Europe. And I get a chance for a few moments. Marilyn said, keep it under 20. So we're going to go for 17. And I love organization development and change. Like you think about change and everyone's afraid of it. And how do we create bigger futures? And part of what I think these programs are so valuable is that my hope is that it helps create bigger futures for all the participants. So I'm going to share my screen and fly through a few thoughts and give you a sense of what we talk about in this part of the world. Got to start with Canada. Love this place. Mm-hmm. And also again, Schulich, just an extraordinary place that I love to be part of. And also all the faculty are so passionate about what they do. And you can already sense from Marilyn today what her world is all about. My world is about athletics and exploration and insights into human development from that perspective. I really believe before there were business schools or anything humans raced, it was a race to stay alive. We organized, we adapted to change, and we are the legacy of that racing humans. And I think really business is the biggest race of all, but beyond performing arts, beyond sports, business is everything. And I think how you help organize and elevate and lead change is critically important. And we all know it, but change is just accelerating. And how we stay ahead of it, I think, is even more important now than ever before. And the knowledge in this program, I think, is incredibly valuable. Our insights are simple and elegant. We're going to get to those in a moment, but the whole notion is win thinking. And it's not win lose, it's how do we win at higher and higher levels together. My background, really quickly, I grew up as a ski racer. I was on the national ski team during the era of the Crazy Canucks. My second World Cup downhill is when this guy won the overall World Cup downhill championships. And even back then, the insight for the Canadians was they couldn't beat the Europeans, didn't have the fastest skis. They weren't giving them to the Canadians. But if they organized and worked together and adapted to change, and they were called the Crazy Canucks because they crashed a lot, but they worked together and they won and they beat the world at it. This is me racing in France. What you can't see is fear pouring through my veins. I think if you're not afraid, you're stupid. And I think having that fear going forward, and I think the world we've been through in the last 18 months, you think about the pandemic and how we were forced to change, and sometimes being forced brings out some pretty incredible results. And I'm a huge fan of Zoom. I'm a huge fan of learning virtually. We can fly in virtually to learn and understand and ask questions. And if there are any questions, please ask them. Then my world switched over to the Northwest Passage up in the Canadian North. The early explorers, even from the time of Columbus, he was talk about business. He was trying to get to the Orient, bumped into the Americas. He thought the world was flat. Imagine that. Even back then, there was change. The magnetic compass changed everything. It wasn't just the last 10 or 20 years. All of these things in our lives that humans have created massive opportunity for greater organization, greater change, and accelerating the human experience. This is what the Arctic world looked like. They thought it was the fastest route to the Orient, and it was business to get across the Americas to the Orient. Many of them died, more lives lost than Mount Everest. Really difficult. Human determination. This is our expedition that I wrote in the National Geographic. You can see the explorers' boats on top and ours on bottom, a small little tiny little boat. We were the first to ever sail through this ice-choked hell, as the early explorers described it. And I think that's why Marilyn wanted me to spend a few moments with you today, because the world of change has been with me forever. And if we didn't change and adapt and organize, we'd be dead. And the Arctic is brutal in that way. You look at this image, the ice, most of the Arctic is covered by it. The water, if you fell in it, as we're all dressed right now, you'd last about 5 minutes. And also the competition were these things. And the only thing you need to know about polar bears is that they eat people. So if you don't change and adapt, and what we learned from polar bears is that if you don't make it the polar bear's problem as fast as possible, he will eat you. You're just food to a polar bear. So again, back to that world of change, we've lived it face to face. And I think adapting to it and being ahead of it, and that's what I think this program is all about, is how do we stay ahead of these changes, these developments? How do we move it as an organization forward? One big truth I have to admit, when I first thought of sailing the Northwest Passage, my one big problem was that I didn't know how to sail. And I'm not proud of that, but I really believe that being coachable, and I think, again, back to this program, being willing to learn new things from the experts that are part of this program is fascinating. Doing that practicum is going to be brilliant. Mentoring, I'm going to talk about a story with my dad and James Cameron in a few moments. That's everything. And how we keep elevating our lives and learning and understanding is, to me, the best part of the human spirit. We did have coaches, taught us how to sail. We borrowed ideas from wherever we could, just going to fly through this. Some of the best ideas come from the space program, the food systems, clothing systems they pioneered, we used in the Arctic. I'm a huge believer in R&D, and in our world, R&D simply stands for rob and duplicate. And again, the learning from this program, it's how do we learn and understand and move forward, borrowing ideas from wherever we can. In brutal environments or regular environments, they are all the same. This is what the Arctic looked like when we first arrived. We thought we were beaten before we'd begun. And I'm just going to fly through this just to give you a quick sense of what this terrain looked like. It wasn't about sailing as much as it was pushing, falling, hauling through, continuing on, pushing. People often ask, did you ever think about quitting? And I'm like, every day. And, I love asking live audiences, is it hard sometimes? Absolutely, it's hard. But if we can go with more knowledge, and that's what this program's about, it's valuable to us. And I think if you look at this image right here, I'm standing at 3 a.m. on top of 50 feet of ice, scanning the horizon. And I think all of us, certainly in organization development and change, we need to be the horizon scanners for the organization. Sell the idea of change and what needs to happen to the C-suite and others, and being in courses like this help. Our world was all about having the best ideas, the best learning, and then making it happen moment by moment, day by day. Huge distance in this instance. One big storm captured us surfing the waves of opportunity. And then here we got caught outside of probably 5 miles offshore, winds building at this image about 50 miles an hour. We couldn't put the tent on the boat as we always had for safety's sake. We had to tuck it in behind that chunk of ice. Mike said, my partner, would be here for 5 years. It didn't last for 5 hours. I was inside the tent writing in my journal when I heard him scream over the sound of the wind. The ice pack had shattered. The back of the tent was going underneath the water as I came out. We looked around and realized if we stayed where we were, we'd be dead. We tried to move the boat as quickly as we could close to shore, but we couldn't see where land was at this point. The storm kept building and building with greater intensity. And then very quickly, this became our world. And it was our world for 12 of the longest, most painful, agonizing hours of my life. The Environment Canada had a weather station nearby. They measured winds of hurricane force, 75 miles an hour. It sounded like a freight train was ripping through the bare mast. And if you look down and see the rope, the only thing that allowed us to survive for those 12 hours was that little dot in the ice. It's called a mountaineering ice screw. I brought them along here today virtually for you. This is what they look like. You bolt them in, you climb. Usually the Rockies or the Himalayas, mountaineers use them. A guy from Calgary said, Jeff, take these with you. You never know when you might need them. And indeed, his words were so true. We never used them before. We never used them after. But as all of us know, sometimes one idea can change everything. In this case, saved our lives. And often the best ideas aren't our own. That's why I love learning, love gathering greatness around me. And again, back to this program, that's what it's all about. I remember yelling over to Mike, I'm like, why are you taking these pictures? And he yelled back, he said, if we're going to die, I want to let them know how it happened. I'm laughing, thinking later, that's a professional photographer. Finally crashed into the other side again, that 12 hours later. And you can imagine the excitement when we reached the beach. Then when our lips came unglued, it's time to build a snow wall. Took another couple of days before we went back out on the ice. 7 miles of effort. I'll never forget this day, 14 hours of effort, 1.5 miles ahead. And we've all had those days. Business is not linear. It's not like every day is the same. It's not like every month's the same. It's how we change, persist, move forward, and have grit and determination. We didn't see this polar bear. He just circled around us, but his tracks were huge. And I think the things that are coming at us in the world of change that all of you are experts in is massive, unpredictable. And that's where I think, again, learning is the most valuable tool you can add to your toolkit. We shared a beach for a mother and with her cub. They were eating seaweed. I actually took this picture. I said, Mike, you're the better photographer. Get out there. I'll get a picture of you with the polar bear in it. He fell for it, but this is the picture he took. Incredible animals. If the experts who were used to icebreakers and submarines didn't think we had a chance, the ones who thought and looked at this boat and said, great, were the Inuit, the ones who had lived there for generations, my true heroes. They said when it was in the water, it was kind of like two kayaks and we paddled it a lot. It was the ultimate example of a changing environment and our way to work with it. When it was on the ice, as you see it here, we pushed it. The Inuit said it kind of reminded them of their dog sleds. And then they smiled and laughed at us and they said, I guess you two are the dogs. And I think all of us on this webinar know that the one thing that's unavoidable is human effort. And I think learning and programs like this make our learning and our efforts multiply. We can get more done with more knowledge and wisdom and persuasiveness. Finishing the Northwest Passage, icebergs calving off of Greenland. I love this analogy. An iceberg, this one probably 1 million tons in size, but as you know, 90% below the surface. And I want to congratulate you for taking the time today, but also enrolling in this program. It's below the surface, but if you think of what people see, it's all those things that give the knowledge and wisdom, the buoyancy to create the professional lives we all deserve. We finished the Northwest Passage, and certainly was fun to do a story with National Geographic, a Rolex ad. Don't tell them I'm cheating with my Apple Watch, but it's a multiplier, keeps me on time. But I love their current slogan, anyone can change everything. And think about it, you are the change agent in your worlds, personally, professionally. And that's why I love this learning, because I get a sense it's not just about your professional lives. It'll help us in all aspects of our lives, because we are organizing our families, our friends, our futures, and professionally as well. Last quick stories. We're 11 minutes in and I'm racing to the finish line. I'm not going to share much on this story today, but we raced 5 Eco Challenge World Championships. You want to talk about the world's toughest race? This is it. Teams of 4 racing together, men and women. And if one person quits, it's over. 500 kilometers long, difficult, all off-road courses. Challenge, adrenaline, and my 2 favorite words in the English language, the bottom there, willpower. And think about it. Willpower created horsepower, rocket power. Everything happened because of human will. And again, back to learning, it gives us the tools and the knowledge to move and accelerate our lives. A quick look into the world of Eco Challenge. We were an all rookie team in Borneo, 80 teams from 40 countries. They gave us a 0% chance of finishing. Your feet get destroyed. I love this song. It's never been easy. And that's why we need to keep pushing, keep learning. Enough of that. A couple thoughts from Eco Challenge. One of them is limit self-pity. You know why? Because no one cares anyways. And I think part of it is mindset. And I think this program is all about mindset. And it's how do we have change mindset? How do we have an organization mindset to move forward? It did take us 9 days, 23 hours. We were the first all rookie team to ever finish their race, and thrilled to get to the finish line. But all of us know it's never about the finish line, and it's never about not continuing to learn. And again, I want to congratulate you for embarking, hopefully, on this program and many others. We're up to 12 minutes here. Really quickly, the 6, we call them the race rules, but really are a change model. When Marilyn and I were talking, she really embraced these, and I get her to comment as soon as we're done here. But, great goals, it's having about, a bigger future. And in this context, it's a change model. Clarity of roles and goals, is first, especially in organizational development. And moving it forward. Like, I love great goals. Even you think back to Kennedy, one of my favorite stories of all. They lost the race to space, and Kennedy said, we've got to get to the moon and get safely back. And they did it in record time and engaged thousands of people. You want to think of how they changed an entire world. And it wasn't just about getting to the moon. It was communism versus democracy. So the first one is great goals. Second one is vivid visualization. I think things happen twice. First in the theory of the mind, second in reality. And in the context of OD, it's envisioning the future that we want. And then, envisioning it, and then how do we move it forward? The third one is gather greatness. We have a gathering of greatness in the facilitators in this faculty here in the Northwest Passage. In context, 2 of us on the boat, as you saw, but 130 people that we gathered so that we could adapt to change and organize an expedition that people thought was impossible. And then, in the context of OD, making sure you have the right people in the right jobs, skills, emotional maturity. People can express their greatness. And Marilyn helped me see some of those things. And I love the collaborative nature of what we do in these programs. The fourth one is encourage everyone. I used to think it was the least important. Now I think it's the most important. I love asking live audiences, who's the hardest person to encourage? I can audibly say, and it happened last week in Chicago, people echo out myself. And it's true. I wish confidence was cumulative. I don't believe it is, but we need to encourage ourselves and others. And I think that notion of change, it's encouraging people towards it and motivating, creating a collaborative environment and an OD client-centered. And how can we help? It really, the core of it, that word courage, is so magical. The last 2 really quickly, course correct. When they're going to the moon, they're off course 98% of the time. It's just tweaking the rockets. We don't walk straight, drive straight. It's how do we course correct? And I know it's big in OD, always course correcting, as Marilyn told me, constantly. And that's what it's all about, a bigger future that we course correct into. The last one is momentum matters. A body in motion stays in motion. A body at rest stays at rest. And keeping the process alive. Continuous improvement is what OD is all about. Those are the 6. Couple last thoughts before I share that story with James Cameron. I want you also to consider what you're going to stop doing. An acronym for WIN. What's important never. To have a bigger future, you can't do everything. I mean, Steve Jobs was brilliant at Apple, saying they say no to almost everything and just do the most important things. And I know that's going to be part of this program as well. Last story here, Race to the Bottom of the Ocean, James Cameron. James Cameron's hero growing up was my dad. My dad's a medical medical doctor first, and then became fascinated with science and the oceans. Cameron, as a 14-year-old boy, and I'm going to show a 2-minute video here in a second of James Cameron talking about my dad, saw Dad's underwater habitat at the Royal Ontario Museum. And what I love, and I really get a sense of what this program is all about, it's about mentoring, it's about constantly learning. And there's nobody who's understood the world of change better in my life that I've met than James Cameron. So take a moment and watch this quick story.
When I was 14, I saw this amazing machine on display outside the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. It was called Sublimnos, this big underwater habitat. I got so excited I drew pictures of it, and I wanted to make my own. So I wrote to its creator, Dr. Joseph McGuinness, who I understood was the Jacques Cousteau of Canada, our leading underwater explorer. And he wrote back. He gave me encouragement, and he even told me where to get the plexiglass for the windows. Well, I never finished my own habitat, but I did meet Joe McGuinness years later, and I found him to be the same tireless supporter of exploration and innovation. And he became a friend and a shipmate on a number of our expeditions. And together we dove miles down at Titanic and other sites.
That'll get your attention.
Joe, you've been a great mentor to me. You've helped me on the expeditions in so many ways with your deep experience in the medicine and safety issues of diving and of being at sea far from home for long periods of time, but also with the psychology of leadership, helping me to see what I'm doing wrong and when members of our team were in distress and how to inspire people, you know, to bring their best game every day to meet the challenges of exploration. With you there, I always felt I needed to be the best version of myself.
Wow, I love that. Constantly love that. And, you know, I think, again, these programs are about how do we become the best version of ourselves? That constant learning, understanding. I'm within 2 minutes of the end here. Last thought on Team Genius, a concept of my dad's. None of us is as strong as all of us. I'm going to ask all of you to type in a quick in the chat in a moment, an I will win statement out of this program. But while you're thinking about that, be inspired for 30 seconds here with James Cameron talking about Team Genius.
They bonded, they learned how to work together, they learned how to rely on each other's strengths, they learned how to work together to fill in the gaps in each other's weaknesses, and they actually succeeded in a task that would have seemed impossible before the fact. Nobody does it themselves. Doesn't matter how smart they are. So how do you function in a team? How do you have that team genius?
This was Team Genius.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you create with this program is Team Genius within your organizations and keep elevating it. You're going to be selling your stories. Think about Titanic, biggest blockbuster of all time. How do you do that when everybody knows the end of the story already?
Open your eyes.
The ship sank. Well, it is telling great stories. That's what Cameron is brilliant at. So now, right on time, type in your I will win statement in the chat, please. Just give us a quick sense of what you'd love to win out of this program. And all I can say is keep winning. And back to you, Marilyn.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really wonderful. I really enjoyed that. And we think we have challenges, huh? I was thinking about you in that 18-foot sailboat. I'm a sailor too, and I tell you, I would never think about doing something like that. That's just amazing. Jeff, you did a really good job of going around the whole WIN model with all the various things we talked about. I guess I wanted to just say that I really liked your comment on us needing to be the horizon scanners for the organization. It's a perfect description of what an OD professional is. And the iceberg is also a good analogy to think about, because as horizon scanners, we're not just looking at the horizon, we're looking below the ocean and below where the iceberg is really deep, and trying to get at the information that will help the organization move forward, and then becoming a conduit for that information to the organization. So when you say the best ideas aren't our own, that's the bottom line of OD. It's not about our ideas. It's about us finding out their ideas and feeding it back to them so that they can learn from each other and be the best team they can be. So it's a perfect connection, I think, to what we're trying to do in this program. And
Absolutely. We have a thought from Lori here, talk about best ideas. She gives us an I will win statement. She said, I will win by continuing to build resilience as change gets bigger and faster.
beautiful.
Wow, Lori, awesome. Back to you, Marilyn.
Great. That's great. Thank you. Any other thoughts from anyone?
Well, we got another from Amy. I will win by continuing to push training and initiatives for my organization. Love that one as well.
Yes.
Great. We love the interactive part of this this
I like
program.
these I will win statements. This is great. It's good to think about. I was also thinking about your number 4 on your race to win model, which is about encouraging everyone. And that's another bottom line of OD, which is motivating by helping the organization distribute power and control and collaborate. And you mentioned collaboration, and that's not a usual idea for organizations, distributing power and control. Most power and control is held by the senior managers, and to help them learn to distribute that is probably the most important way to encourage and motivate people to do their best work. So those are some of the real important points, I think, that we try to teach in this program. And your wonderful stories and videos make such a great exemplar of that. So thank you so much.
You're very kind. Thank you. It's great to be part of. And I think stories do help create obviousness. And my whole role is to remind people of who they are at their best and then challenge them to take it to the next level. That's why it's fun to be part of these
Yep.
programs. You never tell them what to do, but if you can remind them, and then you said it with encouragement, words hurt and they also help. And I think creating an organization of encouragement, nothing could be better than that for people coming out of this program.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. So the last thing I wanted to say to you is it's a little bit of a sales pitch. It's why would you choose the MCOD? There are other programs in the country, not very many, mind you, and not any as in depth as this one. But why would you choose this one? Well, one of the reasons is that you will receive not accreditation, as I mentioned before, but professional certification through SEEK. And SEEK has a sterling reputation. So having a SEEK certificate on your resume immediately enhances your credibility and marketability. Also, as Jeff was saying, the facilitators are excellent. You get a superb quality in teaching, in the content, and we are extremely responsive to our learners. We are always open for feedback, and we invite it and we act on it. And we're having a meeting in a week or so to do just that, to take the feedback from the last program and think about where can we go with it, what can we update, what can we change, what can we make better. It's continuous improvement for us all the time. You're working with Canada's masters in the field with experience across sectors. So these facilitators are the masters in the field, but you're also working with other students, many of whom are masters in their own fields and are very experienced, and you learn a lot from them. So some people have told us this program has changed their lives, and we like to believe that's true. So as Joanne said, for any other information, she's available always. She can answer your questions about payment. She can answer your questions about There are payment programs, I believe, that people can have that stretch out the payments if you need that. There is some help with payment that I think you can get. So you can get all of those answers from Joanne. And if you have questions about the content, you can reach out to me. And if I can't answer the questions, I'll reach out to my faculty and get them to answer the questions. So we're all here to help you benefit as much as possible from this program and make it as easy as possible for you to register in the program. So let's have now a final question period from people. I'm assuming we can't hear them, is that right? We can't do it by voice? Virginia, is that true?
I think that's the case, Marilyn. So they would have to use the
Okay,
chat
so
box.
it's just in chat, okay.
Yes.
So final chance right now on the webinar to ask your questions. And otherwise you can reach out to Joanne or to me and have another opportunity. Nothing? Okay,
They're all just
well,
signing
so
up
we're going to
right now.
end early. What was that, Jeff?
They're all just signing up, so they're busy. Like,
Hopefully. Jeff, did you want to say anything else? We have a few extra minutes. I'm sorry to squish you. I thought there'd be more.
I was watching the time. I kept it under 20 minutes.
You were great. You were
Lori
great.
has a question here. It starts in April. How many months does it take to complete?
Right, good question. It goes through June with the modules, and then in June, there's an orientation seminar, webinar to help people get ready for their practicum. Then they have the whole summer to organize a practicum placement. I'm surprised there were no questions about the practicum. The placement is of people's own choosing. So they need to find their own practicum, but we help them, we give them suggestions, they get help from other people in the class, and everybody always ends up with a practicum placement. And then they have from September until the end of November, which is happening right now with our current cohort, to actually enact the practicum and do all the activities that they've proposed for the practicum. We recommend no more than 6 days, but mostly people take longer because they choose to. They want to have more time than 6 days, and they negotiate that with their client. They finish the practicum in December, and they have until January 31st to write their final paper. So we didn't want them to have to work over the Christmas holidays, so we gave them the month of January to do that. Does that answer?
Lori would like to know how big is the cohort usually?
Yeah, there's a good question. Well, this time it was 26 people. We were delighted that that many people were interested, and we felt that that was too large. So we're going to, if it gets to be larger than 20, we try to keep it to 20. If it gets to be larger than 20, we'll have to have a conversation about running it twice. So that's where we're at right now. We'll see how the numbers go. But we try to keep it between 16 and 20. That's the ideal number for a program like this because it's so interactive. There's so much conversation going on, and we want people, unlike in the webinar, people on screen in our Zoom class sessions are able to talk to each other, and they do a lot of talking. A lot of question asking, a lot of giving examples. And so we want to make sure that they have the time to do that and the airspace to do that.
See the question from Joe? Can we ask that one? She goes, or the person goes, do you have examples, case studies of how graduates have used the knowledge gained through the course in the real world and the impact it has had for their organizations?
Ah, that's such an interesting question. Just looking at this, how graduates have used the knowledge gain. We are constantly getting emails from people telling us that they have been able to use the learning in their workplace. I don't have any case studies on hand, but that's a really good idea. I think it would be good for us to collect those and have them available. I do have examples of what people have done in their practicum. because we work with them and we know the details of that, but I don't have the details of what they've actually been able to apply in their workplace. Though, as I say, they tell us all the time that they are able to use the materials. Oh, thank you for that.
I got an example. So I didn't mention this part of the story. The Northwest Passage was a business case learning program way back when. And funnily enough, the professor said, because it was looking at a new business, they were like, sailing in the Northwest Passage isn't a business, so you can't do it. And so it took us quite a while, and they finally said, oh yeah, go ahead, whatever. And then we ended up winning the case competition. And what it helped us with was just having the weight of all the learning from putting it together, and it really helped with sponsorship and was really a catalyst to getting the whole thing done. So it was a practicum in putting a small business together, and we really learned a lot.
Fantastic.
Joe says, thank you for your thoughts there. Any other questions?
Actually, let me add something to that. I don't have case examples of how people have applied the learning, but I can tell you that people have gotten jobs on the basis of getting this certificate. And one of the jobs was a woman who had just joined the program. She hadn't even graduated yet. She got offered the job of organization development consultant for York University.
Nice.
And she took that job and proceeded to do it for about 10 years. She's retired now, but she got that job offer on the basis of having been in the program. She had not even graduated yet. So that gives you an example of how well regarded the program is. There was, thank you very
I
much.
also heard from some of my clients that recruiters search LinkedIn and they are contacting people if they see that they completed our master certificate program. Recruiters are actually contacting those people.
Interesting.
Yes,
That's
so that was really
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of like the other program, the MCATD, which is the Training for Trainers program. We were told that people were being hired on the condition that they had taken our program. So that's interesting. That hasn't happened yet with the MCOD as far as I know, but maybe that's coming. The other program's twice as old. So.
And also for anyone who would like specific examples about how past graduates have used the knowledge, I could certainly put you in touch with one of our past graduates. They would be more than happy to share their information with you. So I'd be happy to do that for anyone.
That's very helpful. Carol Registe, who was supposed to come today, would be a good one. She probably ran into a problem and I haven't heard from her, but our graduates are always interested in helping people in the program. So that would be great, Joanne. Thank you. Any last questions or words from anyone before we close up? Okay, well, looks like we're done. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been really delightful. And Jeff, again, thank you. I really enjoyed it. Can you stay on for a few minutes?
Sure.
Okay,
we'll
chat about the next one. Okay. And Joanne, thanks a lot for all the great work you do.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.